It's like
I know. I know.
the process.
Oh, looks like the White House is mad about that Kash Patel thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about it on stream. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have my new studio up in January 6th is gonna be our first day with it. I'm gonna have like a monitor right here so I can actually see what the hell's going on when we're talking.
Oh, nice.
Darren, good to see you. Snuck in a little early. Can't wait for you to tell me whatever you're about to tell me.
Yes. Oh, it's bad. Okay, yeah.
Hey, Karen. Hey, Lucy, Stuart, Winston. Good to see all of you. Welcome to another episode of Endless Urgency. Very grateful to be with you on this holiday weekend where everything feels a lot quieter, and yet there's still, frankly, an insane amount of news. So much to the point that there's been breaking news that Grant is gonna tell me about in a second. I apologize. But I'm here with Grant Hermes, who is an amazing content creator. We're going to be diving into a few issues. We're going to talk about Kash Patel potentially about to be shown the door, maybe.
Maybe.
Although White House sounds like they're denying it. We're going to talk about Donald Trump ordering the FBI to go after Democratic senators. We're going to talk about Elon Musk mourning the end of Doge. And then Grant's got a bit of an update on a new piece that he's doing about hate incidents in the DOJ. So we're going to talk about all of that while people are getting on board right now. Please do me a favor. If you're watching this on Substack, hit the heart button for us so that more people get a chance to see it. Really does make a difference. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, leave a comment for us regardless. Tell us where you're watching this from. The more that people engage, the more people get a chance to see what we're talking about and what we're all about. So, Grant, you have breaking news that broke as I hit live. So tell me what you got on Kash Patel.
So the story is MS Now, I guess is what we have to call it.
Yeah. No, I'm not calling it that. I've decided I'm going
to. Still going to call it MSNBC.
I've decided that it's okay to dead name MSNBC and like the Sears Tower. That's what you could do. Those are the only two. And Kaminsky Park in Chicago.
Fair. So what MSNBC has put out now is that from 3 different sources that Trump is deciding or in the middle of deciding whether he wants to get rid of Kash Patel starting early next year. Right. Caroline Leavitt sees this and posts that the story is completely made up, which whenever they say that, that's never a great sign for.
No, that means it's true.
Yeah, that means there's something there. The smoke for that has fire. She said, in fact, when this fake news published, I was in the Oval Office where President Trump was meeting with his law enforcement team, including Kash Patel. She said, she read the headline out loud. He said, "What? That's totally false. Come on, Kash, let's take a picture and show them you're doing a great job." And then she posted a picture of Kash Patel and the president standing in front of the Declaration of Independence in the Oval Office.
What a sequence.
Today, I guess. So they're mad about that. But then at the same time, there is also a brand new headline about how it might not just be Kash Patel. It might be a bunch of senior level members of the Trump administration, including the chief of staff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would make sense that you would start to have a mass exodus now. Like, I'll put it into context, is typically at about the 1.5 year mark, you have people start to leave because that's the most amount of work. Just sanitize the Trump administration for a second. The most amount of work gets done in that first year, and then people start to kind of bleed out and leave. Plus, he's already a lame duck, and his disapproval rating is 60%. But more importantly, on Kash, Kash is a fucking joke. He's been a tremendous embarrassment to them from day one, and they're getting it from all sides. It's not just like the left and independent voters who are mad at him, but like conservative voters are really upset with him, and he doesn't seem to have anywhere to turn, or he's got a base of people who like him anymore.
Right. And then he's also having this sort of Bill Belichick moment where his girlfriend is also now becoming part of the headline, which is never a thing that Trump likes. He never likes to have the spouse of another person that he doesn't personally have a stake in to be a part of these headlines. And it's all detracting from what he wants the FBI to do. It sounds like the pick beyond Kash Patel might be Andrew Bailey, the former attorney general from Missouri, who, among lots of other very MAGA policies, very anti-trans, very anti-DEI, very anti-abortion, he also has this interesting little picadillo about the time he spent pushing to not overturn cases of convicted people who were innocent. Mm-hmm. So he spent a lot of his time as attorney general in Missouri making sure that people who were innocent stayed behind bars after being proven innocent. He thought it was a miscarriage of justice for them to overturn these judges' rulings, and in the way that the president wants the DOJ to operate and wants the like federal bench to operate. An attorney general who is against overturning rulings would seem to be something that he might like.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This thing with Kash Patel is really interesting, and like from the get go, the last time you and I talked about this, it was just after Charlie Kirk's death,
Mhm.
and Kash Patel had stepped on his own tail there uh, with that, and so I don't. It would seem to me that like this kind of stuff, and then on top of the Epstein files getting released too, in whatever capacity that's going to be, like I wouldn't be surprised if behind the scenes the president's pretty upset with the way the FBI has been handled over the last 11, almost 12 months. Definitely.
Wait, he has to be extraordinarily pissed off that he isn't getting what he wants. Like this Comey case got thrown out. Lindsay Halligan was illegally appointed, but also completely botched the investigation into it. So if I'm him, like I told you off stream, I did Pierce Morgan yesterday, and one of the things is Pierce got in my face about I called Trump a fascist again. He's like, Mike, if he was a fascist, wouldn't all these people be behind bars? And I go, I didn't say he was a particularly successful fascist. He's not good at it, and a good fascist would have gotten the economy right first and then started going after his political enemies. Instead, he's doing it the opposite way. And he's promoted the least qualified people on the planet. And Patel and Bongino and Halligan and Bondi and the rest of them, they might be carrying water on Epstein files for him, which is good for him because he's scared to death about what's in there. But it's not a particularly effective way to keep people safe. And it's not an effective way for him to go after his political enemies. So I'm curious if the Missouri AG, if he takes over the FBI, will be better on the whole for him on that, or if
Right.
he'll conform to being like a more normal head of the FBI to regain the public's trust. I'm just sort of
Right.
curious about how he plays
I'm,
that.
I mean, maybe, but because Bailey is the co-director of the FBI right now, if I remember that right, he was
I think he's co-deputy director.
co-deputy director. Sorry, so he's the co-deputy with Bongino because
Yes.
I, like you said, Bongino's carrying water. I haven't seen Bongino carrying anything in months. I don't know where he
Every now
is.
and again on Twitter, he'll like
He'll
reemerge and say
pop
something
up.
and be like, "I promise you, there's so many things going on behind the scenes. You don't know what's happening. Trust us." Blah blah blah. Like whatever.
Sure, man. Sure. I mean, and that may or may not be true, right? They're federal investigations.
Right.
Fine. I'll give him a little bit of slack, I guess, on that.
I mean, give him
But
as much slack as his wife gives him because he was on Fox News not that long ago talking about how much his wife hates him, which is just really, it's never a good sign when somebody in control is just on TV being like, my wife and I, we're really struggling right now. And be like, you can quit and go tend to your family.
right, you could
Yeah.
stop this.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair,
Roman did the same thing when he was accused of the bribery scandal.
that's true. That's absolutely true. That's true. I will say, I mean, he seemed to do a lot of yelling into a camera from his basement while his family is home, and so like I do that when my wife's not home. That's why I'm doing it now. That's why this is happening now. I think the other part of that is interesting is if like what happens if, like you said, yes, after a year, usually this amount of work, the pace of this work, and this White House in particular, like I said before, sanitizing a lot of what is actually being done. The pace of this White House has been nearly unprecedented in what they're trying to do. The scope, the size, the speed, all of it's massive. And so, yeah, I would assume by January, a lot of people, including Susie Wiles, are starting to flame out because they just can't handle a lot of it. And like in a practical sense, the chief of staff is the gatekeeper to the president, and like I can imagine what that job is like right now. And specifically, it seems from the reporting, at least, that the president is upset about the economic message that's been getting out there, and that nobody within the cabinet really has been able to nail down what their message on the economy is. They don't have a great affirmative vision for those things from a pure political standpoint. And then when you add into the mix right now what's happening with healthcare, which I would argue is still an economic issue, obviously,
Yes.
like they're all over the road there too. So yeah, I would imagine the president's pretty upset with how his two key, you know, provisions of what he wanted his presidency to be are playing out right now, and
Yeah.
he'll yell at his staff about that. Yeah.
I mean, you have to imagine again, I'm just trying to put myself in his shoes for a second. Like I would just he has to be super pissed right now with how this has turned and how like even just the factions of MAGA that are turning on him right now. But Kim Yingling in the comments makes a really good point, which is, are we even sure that Trump is being told what's going on? And I think that's a really key point because we sort of assume when we watch these interviews of Trump when he's like, my approval rating is 60% and everything is cheaper at Walmart and blah blah blah. And like that he's lying. Like we make the assumption that he's just lying about this stuff, but I do wonder what his briefing books say, what his closest advisors are saying, because we know that he's surrounded himself with sycophants. So this may be an emperor has no clothes situation, and he's actually to the extent that he can be, because it's a choice, but he's a victim of disinformation around him relative to everything else. Not to give him like an excuse for that, it's just that Stephen Miller is getting what he wants,
Right.
and Tulsi Gabbard's getting what she wants, and so to the rest of the group, they've all got their sort of like individual fiefdoms, and they're acquiring whatever information, data, revenge they want. Then they're just like, Mr. President, the economy's great. Have you seen the coupon section of Walmart? Like the turkey dinners are 14% off under Trump. And he's
Right.
just like, sure, sounds great.
Right. Like, and I think too that we know some of that actually happens from his first administration. You look at the memoirs of people like John Kelly, for instance, who talked about there were days where it was just easier to give Donald Trump good news that he could sort of hang on to for a little bit while you offered up the bad news,
Yeah.
and then he has to be treated in that way, in that very like, I don't even know if it's like a compliment sandwich kind of a way, but like
Yeah.
it is like that. And like they have to sort of soften the ground, which is Donald Trump, before they give him some of this news. And I think when it comes to the economy, for a little while, they could sort of hang their hat on like tariff money being collected, quote unquote, right? Because we don't know.
But they're not even right about the tariff money being
I
collected.
agree.
It's crazy to me how disconnected they are from even their achievements, quote unquote. Is that they're like, we've taken in $5 trillion in tariff revenue, and be like, in reality, you've taken like maybe $200 billion in tariff revenue.
Right.
Meanwhile, while destroying the economy, or even on Doge, which is maybe a good pivot to another topic here, is like Doge was a complete and total disaster, and they dramatically overestimated how much money they cut, quote unquote. And in fact, because they had to reinstall people and pay them out benefits and pay legal fees, Doge actually cost the government more money than it saved, and so it was a complete and total disaster.
Absolutely. And like I know that Doge and people like Elon Musk and the people who are employed by Doge want to say that their legacy is going to be rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, which we know by the numbers isn't true. But like the real legacy of that is going to be things like shuttering USAID
Yeah,
and
cancer
and
research for kids.
yes, and like the thousands of deaths that will be caused and hundreds of thousands of illnesses that will be caused because Doge cut those things. And the long tail implications of cutting NIH grants and studies and funding and those things. That'll be Doge's legacy. But the news about Doge is that Reuters is reporting today that Doge, with 8 months either left to go or into its charter is what it is. They're closed. It's been
Yep.
disbanded. They were talking to an official at OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, and they were like, "Hey, that Doge doesn't exist anymore. It's been dissolved and broken up and put into a bunch of different agencies, including one that apparently is for like making government websites prettier." Which, as somebody who uses those things all the time, I guess sure, I'd like them to be a little
Yeah.
more pleasant to
Hey, if
look
they make
at.
fec.gov slightly more usable, I would be pretty happy about
Yeah,
that career.
100%, 100%. If I could get BLS to be a little more user friendly, that sounds great.
That's right. And
I
I
don't.
tend to agree with Katie in the comments that like what Doge actually wanted was to get access to our information. And my assumption is that Palantir probably now has a bunch of information because of what happened with Doge. I agree they were successful in that. But I will note that the public reason for Doge, which
Yeah,
was to cut government waste, fraud, and abuse, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's a perfect example of the mistake in our politics that Democrats makes, which is the government is super inefficient. There's a ton of waste, fraud, and abuse. Go ask Rick Scott, who was once fined $1 billion for defrauding Medicare and Medicaid, and his punishment was $1 billion in government penalties, and then also he got elected United States Senator and Governor for the state of Florida. So clearly, people get punished. But we can go in there and do those things, and I think Democrats should pick up that baton and go, "This was a complete and total failure. But when you elect us, we're going to go in and make government more efficient. We're going to take that back." I don't think we should like let that issue die because people care about it, and I think on the whole, it's one of those things where Trump talks a good game on it and has no meaningful solution to deal with it and doesn't really care about it, but he knows regular people do. But we should pick that shit up. This is the perfect opportunity to co-opt these issues they've taken from us, which would be, to me, border security and immigration, government spending, corruption in government. We've got to weed some of that out on our end. If we do that stuff, we'll actually be in a much stronger position post-Trump, I think, to get people to believe in the party again.
and I think that from like the Democratic Party standpoint, that's an interesting way to do that. I think you're going to get a lot of that in the conversation around affordability that you're getting with a lot of younger millennial and Gen Z people coming into politics right now. I was just having a conversation with Amanda Levin from Run for Something a couple hours ago.
I
Um,
love Amanda. She's brilliant.
she's fantastic. She's brilliant. Yes. And we were just kind of having the same conversation. Is that like, and it's not unlike conversations you and I have had before about some of this, where it's part of the old guard in the Democratic Party right now specifically is holding up some of the push to make American life more affordable that would come from undoing or focusing a lot of the waste, fraud, and abuse, if that's what we want to call that. I also think that in like if I was going to wear a Democratic Party hat, like it would be yes, you do all the things you just said, but then also someone's going to have to figure out what happened to the personal data. I mean, if it is surreptitiously Palantir is getting all of this data, that's a problem because that was not a thing that we all said was cool as American citizens. Um, but also, we know that some of this stuff was leaked. I mean, it was put on like a Microsoft OneDrive for Christ's sake,
Mhm.
by Big Balls or whoever it was. So, so like,
Big ball. You didn't pronounce the Z though. It's important. Bzz.
yeah, sorry, yeah, this is at the end, yeah,
We're
like.
truly living through the darkest timeline. I don't know how else
It's
to describe.
Is it dark or is it just dumb? Because most of the time I feel
Yeah.
like saying the dumbest shit out loud. Like
It
it's just
is, it is, it is dumb. And like I was telling you this before the stream, but it's like this Rush Hour 4 thing, which I know we didn't like put on the topic, but like Donald Trump just like going into business for himself and being like, I want them to make a new Rush Hour movie is like, what the fuck are you doing,
I
man?
don't.
Like you're the president of the United States. I need you to act normal every
Yeah.
now and again.
Yes. Yes. But like what I was going to say is that like yeah, the Democratic Party needs to have somebody who gets up there and is like, hey, we're going to do all the government waste and cut that thing because people love that line. We're going to do it in a smart way. We're not just going to start hacking out those things.
Right.
But also like someone's got to track down our data. Someone's got to figure out where this stuff went because it clearly went somewhere. So like, what happens now? How exposed are Americans? Might actually be from a like personal security and national security standpoint not a bad policy direction to go. But you don't hear anybody in the Democratic Party talking about those things at all.
Well, I think it's because it's a harder thing to explain to people, and it's disconnected from the fundamental economic issue. And it actually, I meant to bring this up in the list of topics, but James Carville yesterday, in I don't know if you saw this, he endorsed economic populism for the future of the Democratic Party, which
Mm.
a lot of people in the responses to my tweets about this yesterday were like, "Yeah, no shit," or like, "Go, good, glad to see James Carville catch up." But I don't think people understand like how significant it is for somebody like James Carville to get to a place where I know I've been for a while. Granted, my conversation with you, I think you're there too, is that will open a lot of doors to the like this is the new version of the Democratic Party that embraces that Bernie Sanders style economic
Mm-hmm.
populism that I think is really real. Because what Carville is saying, having looked at the numbers and having, I've never talked to Carville about this particularly, but like I've talked to a lot of people around him, is we do need to run on something big because people are getting killed and the economy has transitioned two or three times just in our lifetimes and is now going through this big AI pivot. It requires the government to do that. Trump's making it a lot worse. But I think if Democrats run and deliver on something like that, it's really great. And in the meantime, and this is what I would tell my clients to do, is don't give up on the efficiency stuff because people do think the government's super inefficient. So you've kind of got to like pull both ends of the spectrum in and go, we're going to root out the waste, fraud, and abuse that exists in the government, and we're going to take that money back and we're going to use it to help you. And we are going to pay for childcare, and we are going to do this, and we are going to do that, and we're going to build the foundations of a life. And what I articulated it to a more moderate client that I have like this the other day is you want people to be able to pull themselves up still. Like I don't think anybody wants to be given anything. Nobody's like excited to get a food stamp. Nobody's excited to have free childcare. I mean, I think people want that stuff, but they want the track to be laid out for them so that they can be successful while they work hard. They don't want to have to like stumble and like hit their feet and like walk on nails every day. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what we're trying to build. So if we build that out, does that make sense? Or
No,
am I
yeah,
just kind of ranting?
no, it makes total sense to me. It's
Okay.
sort of this shift that I have been thinking about a little bit. I haven't written about it yet because I don't have my ducks in a row on it. But what are lives for anyway? So it's
I mean, you could be like me and just take 20 minutes, write something up real quick, and then just get it out and go, whatever. So,
it's this shift from what we were all talking about when we were talking about democratic politics 6 months ago was the Ezra Klein, Derek Thompson abundance narrative,
yeah.
and that sort of slowly anamorphed its way into affordability. And I think that yeah, there was some pushback to abundance, but also it shifted because the way that the economy worked and has changed just since Trump became president means that abundance actually might be the next step of what we can do, but we have to work on the affordability stuff first as a country. And so
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is exactly in line on how people will likely approach this thing if the Democratic Party can get its feet underneath it
Yeah.
in the
But
next
like,
few years.
Look, I've read Abundance. I've listened to a ton of Ezra Klein and
Yeah,
Derek when they're on various podcasts. I don't think they're necessarily like wrong about stuff, particularly when they talk about like it's impossible to build new housing in the country right now. I think that's spot on. Like it's
that's
fucking hard. And it was some. I mean, I forget the city of Chicago had a bunch of money approved to build housing, but like the per new unit amount was so ridiculous that we've got to find ways to make it more efficient, and we got to sort of elevate people who can be innovative on that. But on affordability, we're going to spend a lot of time like politically talking about like how do we make grocery prices cheaper, how do we make housing prices cheaper, but the answer might be to actually like pull other things out of people's budgets that are dragging them down. And like student loan conversations, obviously one of them. If you're somebody that's like under 45 in this country, you have a lot of student loan debt that's dragging you down. You could do that in a number of different ways. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of forgiveness. I think you should forgive the shit out of those loans, start over, get to public financing of public universities, which is where Bernie largely is. But you could also, like, if you just wanted to start, you could start allowing people to declare bankruptcy based on their student loan debt. Because right now, if you declare bankruptcy, you can't get rid of your student loan debt, which is crazy to me that
right.
the
It's
government
insane.
will allow for that.
Right.
And or just on childcare, the average cost of childcare in this country is $22,000 a year per child, which is crazy. And I was talking to my brother and his wife, and they both work hard. And my sister in law has a job, and they have a kid, and they
Mhm.
the kid with special needs. Like they probably could have a conversation about having one of them stay home. And I was talking about this with my brother. My brother's pretty moderate. I would probably say he's center right, but he voted for Harris. Like he's not a Trump guy. He hates Trump. But I was like, it's great that Caitlyn can go out, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say her name, but like, it's great that she can go out. I apologize to her if she's watching, which she's not. But it's great that she can go out and have that job and career. I want that for her if that's what she wants. But having the second income is now a necessity in it. And
Right.
then in the necessity to have it, you've got to take a $22,000 cut on childcare. So it's like, we got to this place where it's not a quality that both of you have to work. Like
Hmm.
it's not. And that's what bothers me is like I want her to be able to go do that. I want my wife to be able to go do that if that's what she wants to do. But I also want somebody to be able to stay home if they can. And I think maybe this is a long-winded way of getting there, but I saw this guy from Heritage Foundation who was kind of breaking a little bit with Trump, but he said whichever political party can figure out how to get back to a place where the average American family can buy a house and live a life of decency and retire on one income is going to rule American politics for 50 years. And I still think that's right. I think that's the right direction and the shape of what we should be trying to solve right now.
Yeah, I mean, in the conversations that I have with my friends, and a lot of us are married and childless, but only because we want to be able to buy a house, and we know that in this moment, saving for a house, for a down payment, or having a kid and paying for childcare can't happen at the same time. It mathematically cannot happen like that. So it's it's this really interesting moment when somebody in one of the parties could step up and figure out a way to do that. I'm looking at a tweet right here about uh, where did Trump's like $5,000 baby bonus incentive stuff go?
Mhm.
And I don't know if this is I'm don't know the person who tweeted this out, so it's just a
I
shot.
think it's in the budget, but it doesn't take effect until like 2027 or something like that.
Right, and I think that they were hanging it on tariff collections again because
Yeah.
that's been his catch-all of like I'm going to promise all these things. It's going to come
Well,
from the
that's when are we getting? Where's my Doge checks that I was promised?
well.
Where's my stimulus package? I mean, they're saying they're going to do it in May now, which maybe is significant, but like they think they're going to be able to buy people off with a $2,000 check in May. It's not going
Well,
to work.
it won't work. But also, like, let's talk about then their how does that jive with how what they said happened to the economy after Joe Biden sent out
Right.
checks, right? Which economists still disagree that it was the stimulus checks that caused all the inflation. But also, like, if that's the line that the Trump administration is going with, why wouldn't this happen that time around? And when I have done stuff about how, for starters, like we don't have the tariff money to afford $2,000 per taxpayer.
No.
We just that money just isn't there.
Right.
Um, like, how does the White House circle the square about it would drive up inflation? Like, they can't answer me, and then have
Right.
stopped me when I've asked that question. So I don't, I don't know where any of that stuff is going to come from.
No, and I don't think that they know where the checks and the money comes from either, and they certainly don't know the inflationary impact of that either. At least Donald Trump does, and I think probably the people around him, like Ludnick, do. But they're not super interested in it because they're sort of like chickens with their heads cut off. I want to make two quick points. I want to go back to the baby stimulus stuff right now.
Mhm.
These baby bonuses. Like I've said this because baby bonuses are a Democratic Party idea. I think historically, like there's been plenty of people in the party who've been like, oh, when you have a kid, you should get a check for $2,500. We want to incentivize you to have kids. And I'm not like inherently opposed to doing that stuff. But the problem is like, let's say is it $5,000? Is that what's made its way
Yeah,
into the okay? So if you get $5,000 when you have a kid, that covers 1/4 of a year's childcare costs if both people are
right,
working. Which, by the way, both people working in a committed relationship is a necessity to survive right now. Not thrive, just survive for like 80% of Americans. So it's bad public policy. And I was talking to Charlie Sperling from the National Journal, and I
yeah,
said that, and he went, Kamala Harris had one for $3,000, Mike. And I go, I said what I said. It's just bad public policy. And I think it's the same thing that Washington politicians do all the time. They want to like put a band-aid on a gaping wound, and they
mhm,
want to make you feel good now with this check that you get. And they're like, oh, our population rate might be declining, so we're going to give you this check to incentivize you to have more kids. But what we're going to do is end up having a bunch of people who have kids get those checks quickly, and then are going to be in a situation where they're a bigger drain on the system because there's no track laid out to support people.
right. And not to mention, like one of the biggest predictors of whether somebody regrets being a parent and is unable to care properly for a child is the financial situation there.
Right.
And like,
Same number one reason that somebody would have an abortion too is
right,
money.
exactly.
Their
And
ability to give that child a good life. So if you want to solve, if you're sitting at home right now and you're like, there are too many abortions and I want there to be less of them, then you should be trying to create the conditions for people to want to have kids.
right, which is the line that people who are pro-choice have been making for 50 years or
Yeah.
longer at this point. But like, it is really interesting that on top of the baby check thing, like the line from people like oh god, why I'm blanking on his name, transportation secretary, um,
Oh, Sean Duffy.
Duffy. Thank you. I kept
Yeah.
thinking, Rick
Mr. Oh,
Perry.
my biggest plan this week is to try to get people to dress nicer on airplanes.
You know what?
Like
I'm
he's
on
like, we
board.
want people to dress nice again. We want suits and stuff. And I'm like, I'm gonna wear joggers on airplanes until I die. And I'm now gonna do it as a form of resistance.
I'm actually on his side with that thing. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh no, really?
I'm a person who dresses above the average to fly.
Oh no, I'm Nike athletic pants, sandals. I want to be comfy, please. I'm hoping that my mileage gets me bumped up to first class, like, and then I just look ridiculous.
That I will say, my when we go flying anywhere, like my wife is also the one in like a full tracksuit, sweat get up, and like still has the eye mask and everything. So we look mismatched because I'm usually like in a jacket or something. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
This is just unimportant, and I'm just gonna go out into an aside. Are you a pro wrestling fan? Have we ever talked about this at some point in your life?
I know very little about it, but you and I
Okay.
have.
So for the pro wrestling fans that are on here, Paul Heyman, who's like a legendary like manager, like he manages people. I get on an airplane once. He's wearing a full velour blue tracksuit, sits on the other side of the plane from me. I didn't say anything to him, but I just saw him bright blue velour tracksuit and sandals, and I was like, this man might actually be my hero. We were on like a 4 hour flight from like DC to LA or whatever, and it was so funny to me. 6 hour flight. It was crazy.
I don't know if I'm going to spend 6 hours in a plane. Velour might be the way to go. That sounds not so
He
bad.
looked comfy, man. He put an eye mask on and just cranked out. Had like one whiskey and cranked out. And I was like, I really want to sit next to you and just talk to you.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Meanwhile, it made me feel better about being in shorts and a t-shirt. So
Yeah, yeah, fair, fair. Oh god.
But again, I think like the Sean Duffy stuff, all right, so you agree with him, which is fine. But like to me, that's what they're focused on. They're focused on this superfluous stuff of like, you should be wearing a suit when you're on an airplane, not the fact that airlines are charging like fucking $1,500 to go visit your family if you take a flight this year, which is
Right,
crazy.
right. What I was
Fifteen
going to say,
hundred,
like,
excuse me.
what I was
Sorry.
going to say is about with Sean Duffy is that he started this line first, and it's kind of bowed out. And his wife, who's on Fox News, also said this thing. But like, it's have more kids than you can afford seems to be their line when it comes to like growing the American population.
Yeah.
And like,
Well, Benny Johnson says that all the time.
yeah, no, I know. And it's such an odd place of disconnect with the broader American public about what it would mean to have more kids than you can afford, because they don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about not affording anything.
Right.
So it's I don't know if that's a winning line, and I don't really know who it's for, other than like people
Well,
exactly like them.
I can tell you where I think it comes from in the data, because there's data driven as the rest of
Yeah,
us. I think they see that a lot of Americans want to start families and Americans want to have kids. And I think their readout of it is there are a lot of people on the left that aren't having kids for one reason or another. And you meet people that will say, climate change is so bad, like I'm not going to have kids and add to the climate problem. And like, okay, fine. I feel like you're creating a bigger problem with that, which is that we need more liberal minded, like, adults who
Mm,
grow up and we can't. It's the idiocracy problem of, if Cletus from The Simpsons has 12 kids and I only have one, eventually we're going to be overwhelmed by Cletus's kids. And it becomes a bit of more than an issue. And I would argue we may, in some ways, be living that right now, in more than a few ways. But I think to them, they're like, we're going to create the conditions where people want to have kids, but they don't want to lay any foundational track to it. And look, if you look historically over human civilization, declining population rate is a sign of a declining nation, period. And
mm,
that is a real thing that you can see over time. Now, I would argue in a world with AI, we might not need as many people, so it might actually be worth letting the population decline naturally, to be clear. I'm not talking about any like weird eugenic shit that like RFK Jr. likes to talk about because those
yeah,
people are
yeah,
weirdos. But that may be like worth the conversation, but they don't want to do anything that actually incentivizes people to have a kid and actually gives them a good life. It's why I tell people the Republican Party is not a pro-life party. At best, they are a pro-fetus party. But they
mm,
don't care about you when it's not politically convenient for them. The minute that somebody has a baby and makes that decision to keep it, if they need support, oh, they're mooching off of the government. And I'm like,
right,
well, which is it? Do you care about these people or do you not care about these people? And can we figure out a solution? Because we're not taking care of our elderly. Millennials in particular are getting sandwiched between taking care of their parents and having kids. We have no childcare services in this country. We have no paternity or maternity or
mhm,
adoption leave. I mean, it's ridiculous, and we're so far behind. And I don't want to give people stuff away, but most people are doing everything right, and they're falling behind, and wages aren't rising. So either we can force corporations to raise wages, we can force corporations to drop prices, or we can provide people with public services that make their lives easier. Those are essentially the three options, as far as I can
yeah.
tell.
I mean, when you talk to
Broadly.
when you read the polling, when you go and talk to people who are, at political functions or just out at anything, like a peewee hockey game or whatever, you talk to those parents, you talk to those people, and ask them, you know, how they feel about how the government should spend money, how they're living their lives, and nobody wants, generally speaking, they don't want everything to be handed to them so they don't have to go work or to go do those
Right.
things. They just want it to be like this much easier, and that's been such a constant refrain for the people that I have talked to since January. And a lot of them who were Trump voters thought, it will be at least this much better. Yes, maybe we're signing up for another round of the daily chaos that is Donald Trump.
Right.
And he might, the people who are like kind of with it a little more on politics, which tends to not be most people. You and I are in a weird class of
Yeah,
people.
we're in the 1% of the
So
1% that track this stuff.
yeah, so
And
terminally
probably honestly the 2,100 of you who are here too are part of that 1% of the
totally,
1%.
totally. And so like most people,
And God love every one of you. I appreciate all of you.
yeah, also that, yeah, like we're all weirdos together in that way. But like, but like
Be
it,
like, raise your hand if you were deputy president of your Young Democrats group or
yeah,
whatever. Like, be like,
right,
oh, you're
right.
saying I'm not the norm?
Did
I
you?
see.
Yeah, I was 8 and I was watching polling come in for the presidential. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, people will ask me like, Mike, what's your earliest memory in the news? And I'm like, the 2000 election. I remember every bit of it. Every bit of it. Don't remember OJ, but I remember that.
I think my first memory was Bill Clinton apologizing was my first political moment.
Oh yeah, that might be mine too. Are we the
Yeah,
same age? How old are you?
33.
30, oh, 33. I'm
Yeah,
38. Shit, I thought you were the same age as me. Now I feel old.
no, no. I mean, I'm not going to call you that, but no.
I mean, no, I mean, I'm almost 40, man. Nicole made a good point here that I want to shout out, which is, white Americans and African Americans are seeing declining population birth rates, but other groups aren't. So some
Totally.
of that is definitely the anti-Latino trend inside of MAGA right now, which is that they're watching population rates to explode. In the same way the turn of the century, be watching like Italian and Irish and German
Right.
population rates explode. So it's probably the same, more than a little bit of that, and we should have said that too. Like race plays a big
It
role in
does,
all
and
this.
the now fully mainstreamification of the Great Replacement theory in what is MAGA politics, Republican politics. Which like I know you've had Mike Madrid on before, and like he will talk all about that too. So
Yeah.
people who have here have also or here have also heard people talk about that, and like yeah, that absolutely cannot be ignored when it comes to all of this. I think that it's like this might actually be a good point to pivot to the DHS stuff.
Yeah, let's do it. Before we do that, though, I want to
Yeah.
thank the 2,100 people who are here while we pivot into our final couple of topics. Do us a favor and please keep hitting the heart button for us. The more times that you hit that, the more people get a chance to see it. If you're watching it on YouTube later, hit the like button for us, leave a comment. Again, really does make a difference if you're enjoying the conversation. Share it too. These things matter in the algorithm a great deal. Make sure that you subscribe to Grant's Substack and support his work with a paid subscription if you can. And then if you're stumbling on me, I'm Mike Nellis. This is my Substack Endless Urgency. It's free for everybody. I'm going to work really hard to keep the content free forever. But if you're willing to support our work, it's $8 a month. As folks have heard me talk to death, we're building out our content studio. We have a launch date. It's January 6th. I'm really excited. We can have something positive happen on January 6th, which will be opening the studio.
What an anniversary.
What a day to pick, but that's the first Monday of the year. We've got a couple folks working for us now, including our community manager who's getting paid a living wage, and it's because of you guys. As I've told people before, I'm not taking a dime out of this business. So all the $8 a month subscriptions we get are going to the team, are going back into the business. They're not enriching me. I have a day job that I get paid and I do well enough. But I just want people to know, like, your support helps like expand this, and I'm super grateful for it to facilitate conversations like this. So
Yeah.
Grant, I want to hear about this because I followed the stuff with the Coast Guard with
Yeah.
the swastika, but it sounds like
Mhm.
there's a lot more to that. So can you walk us through the story?
Yeah. So like if people haven't seen the swastika news Coast Guard story, it is basically that there's some new guidance about what constitutes hate symbols and hate speech, hate incidents in the Coast Guard, which is overseen by the Department of Homeland Security. During peacetime, during wars, it's under DoD. And this new policy basically said hate symbols are now going to get downgraded across the board, including swastikas and nooses, which they single out specifically, which I thought was kind of interesting and weird for things I'll talk about in a second. But like, they're saying that those are now considered, what do they call them? Potentially divisive symbols.
Yeah,
And,
potentially divisive. Famously, the swastika, potentially
right,
divisive. Yeah.
potentially, which like obviously got the right amount of outrage,
Right.
because because
I
that's
mean, the head of the Coast Guard had to come out and be like, "No, we're not doing this."
the Trump handpicked admiral of the Coast Guard came out
Yes,
and
and you have to imagine he's going to get fired in the next couple of weeks. I
I
just believe that there'll be like some reason that he has to go spend more time with his family.
I would assume so too. But the interesting thing, and like because that part of it's flashy and big, and it caused the Coast Guard and DHS, Trisha McLaughlin to like backpedal and then repedal and do all the things they do. The reporting missed the part of it that said actually hate incidents don't exist in the Coast Guard anymore. So the idea that there could be something that would rise to a level that is above hazing and harassment, which would be hate incidents. They were in their own class, and the investigations, the way those would be carried out under DHS and in the Coast Guard, were different and more immediate, and they were more serious. That all got flattened. It straight up says in the new policy that hate incidents no longer appear in this policy.
Yep.
And when I asked DHS about this thing, I got stonewalled. I got stonewalled from them. I got stonewalled from the Coast Guard. I didn't get anything. And it's really bizarre. And so, yes, it's important that we know that they're not classifying hate symbols as hate symbols anymore, even though the
Have
ad.
you have
Yeah,
you reached out and talked to Congresswoman Underwood, because she's doing a lot of work on this, and if you, she's a client of mine. If you want me to connect you with her,
I would love to. I haven't been able to reach out to her yet.
okay.
Thing just dropped last week, and I've been waiting for. I mean, I gave DHS a deadline, and then I'm going to give them. I was going to give them until tomorrow, essentially, to follow up on this thing because that story's a week old at this point.
Yeah,
And
I mean they're not going to follow up, but
yeah,
like let's talk afterwards. I can connect you with her because she's doing a lot of work on this and she's dogged in it. So
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
last
you
time
guys should do a live together, honestly, and talk about it.
I would love to,
Yeah.
because last time I reached out to DHS about what this signals, is that DHS for months have been outright using Nazi and white nationalist and white supremacist imagery and dog whistles and codes. Like, there's just no way, after the number of people who have pointed out these things, that someone in DHS wouldn't, in any normal DHS, wouldn't be tasked with making sure that, like, hey, your post isn't 14 words, or we're not capitalizing the only two H's in this post. So that all happens, but like, this is now the first time that I've seen in actual policy in which we've gotten a sense that they are actively devaluing hate incidents and what would be hate crimes,
Yeah.
and specifically singling out Nazi and white supremacist symbols. They could have chosen some other symbol, right? They could have chosen the Antifa flag, right, to be
Right.
in line with what the president tries to
Or
do.
even just like the Confederate flag. Like if this was just, hey, we're
Yeah,
gonna change some of the rules on the Confederate flag, I would disagree with it, but I would understand what they were doing. But like my reaction to this when I saw it was immediately like, who is this for? Like, who does this
right.
benefit? Why is this what you're doing today? And this is the work. And it's because, like, look, I get asked this all the time when I do this conservative media because I'm not shy about calling Donald Trump a fascist. He is a fascist. And if you ask any expert who studies fascism, they know that. But every fascist is a Nazi, but not every Nazi is a fascist, or vice versa. Either way, but it's yeah, flip that around. It's been a long day. But like I am so tired of this because I don't run around calling Donald Trump a Nazi. I don't know that he is a Nazi, but what I do know is that he is comfortable with a lot of people around him who
Mhm.
are themselves Nazis.
Yeah.
And Stephen Miller uses the imagery and he invokes Goebbels at Charlie Kirk's funeral, which was bizarre. And they got the guy in Congress who got fired because he had a swastika in his Zoom background. And like this key is the text chain, and then Paul Ingracia. And by the way, Paul Ingracia is the same guy that got Andrew Tate out when Andrew
Mhm.
Tate was in trouble for sexual assault allegations and trafficking women in Romania. So it's like on and on and on. It's you surround yourself with the worst possible people. And
Right.
as my buddy Carlos Alvarez says, is like if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a fucking duck. Okay.
Right.
And like at a certain point, I have to go, this is what these people are doing. And on top of it, they're not doing anything on the economy, which is where they should really be focused on.
Right. The way that I came around to this as a journalist, it's really hard to call an American president an authoritarian or
Right.
someone who is like at the very least has dictatorial leanings. But and I talked to enough people who study these things and were like, no, that's exactly what this is. And the way that I had to start looking at it was if this was the economy and we were talking about numbers and we were talking about these things and it was economists coming forward and saying, hey, the economy is really bad, which a lot of them are saying that right now. We believe them when we say that. So it should be the same thing for people who study authoritarianism.
I agree.
And like on the point of like Trump being a fascist, he straight up said it was fine to call him a fascist in the Oval Office during his meeting with Zohran Mamdani.
Sure.
All of the writing about it is just two guys from Queens or whatever, like haha funny, but
Yeah.
also
The
like
bromance.
yeah, like funny, and like Trump dresses like him, like Mamdani afterwards, and like oh whatever.
Well, that
But
that
like
was, to be clear, they photoshopped that.
oh they did okay, I thought it was
It was so he's wearing a scarf, not a. It's I thought it was funny shit, but like I've seen Trump dress like that before. But it was a funny bit.
I thought it was I didn't know it was a I thought it was a scarf, but I was the color different. Usually wears like
It
a red
was so
scarf.
what I saw was they took a photo of Mamdani and they photoshopped what he was wearing to make it look more like Trump. I thought it was really funny, but it was not.
Oh, okay, good. I didn't like. I saw it and I was like that. Those seem like normal enough outfits where I was like, yeah, okay, maybe, and thought it was funny. And moved
I've
on.
also people were also just like Trump's wearing those red scarf. Like I've seen him wear that scarf before. Like
Me
when it's
too.
cold, he wears the scarf around, and like I've seen that. I hate that I know enough about Trump to know that that's a normal outfit for him. But like here we are.
It's like his like cold weather red tie is like what that scarf is.
Yeah,
Like
well,
yeah,
he's a lot like he's like a video game NPC where like he has kind of like two outfits, and like you
yeah,
just know it's a daytime outfit and a nighttime outfit. Like you just sort of know that's gonna be roughly the same. And so anytime he deviates from it at all, you're just kind of like, oh, that
yeah.
tie actually looks like it's the normal height instead of
Like
like
ooh,
down all the way down. We don't talk enough about how insane his tie tying skills are. They're insane.
no, no, they're insane. And like at some point, I would love to find out if it's like a clip on and like it's just that long and like
Oh
it's a
God,
custom clip on. Like it's not, but like it'd be hilarious if it was.
it would.
He's just
I
got
don't
yeah.
know. I
I
think
did.
it's always the baggy pants too. It's like whatever his tailor told him to do in the '80s to like make his body shape look better. It's like it just
It,
drives me crazy.
it is. I know exactly the style because I'm a dude who like follows this stuff. I'm the guy who wears jackets on planes. Remember?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, sure. Yeah, you're suave, very suave.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm in a corduroy jacket right now. For God's sake. It's
I'm wearing a $30 vest off Amazon. So
yeah.
and people will now yell at me for admitting I bought something on Amazon right now, which I'll accept my licking on.
But Trump's style is like 1980s Armani, and that was big and expensive and flashy in the 80s, and he just never left that, which is all of his stuff.
Which makes sense when you think about what he's trying to do and rebuild. Like his entire to the extent that he has an agenda, it's like let's rebuild some like weird aggregate '50s to '80s like lifestyle that I really enjoyed. But we're not going to do anything on affordability because I think what they forget is what people liked about the '50s was you could buy a house and you could go to the grocery store and it was relatively cheap and inexpensive, at least for, I want to note that there was a ton of income inequality between whites and blacks in the 50s and
Yes.
60s. Let's not ignore that. But like they want to go back to that, but they don't want to do anything else. So like that's why like Sean Duffy being like, we're gonna wear suits on airplanes is funny to me because it feels like that style throwback. And even Trump being like, we're gonna bring back rush hour is he's just trying to relive the 90s.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what people liked about those times was I could afford a loaf of bread. Like,
Yeah. Right. I could afford a loaf of bread and I didn't have to worry about whether my kid was going to have school lunch debt. Like
right.
that, that was the
Like
thing.
my like I equate it this way. Like my dad was an FBI agent. He served for 34 years in the FBI, and my mom stayed home and raised three boys.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad probably never made more than $80,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad doesn't even understand the economy today and how bad it is for like, especially like my brothers who are working. Frankly, I mean, I work pretty damn hard, but like my brothers work hard because they have to. Like I have a good career that affords me an opportunity to take care of my family. Like those two are grinding in a way that like I'm not entirely sure that my dad had to grind. Certainly not that me, because I've been lucky enough, but my dad doesn't get it, and like that's how far away we are. When people get nostalgic for the past, that's what they're nostalgic for. It's not another Rush Hour movie, although I will admit I will go watch the Rush Hour movie because I am sort of excited about it. I don't think the president should be involved, but like I like Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. Like,
Yeah. 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 I'd watch that again. Yeah,
can he
absolutely.
bring back Firefly? If Trump brings back Firefly, I might actually start to get MAGA. I'd be like, oh
I come
shit.
on this show solely for the references, and that is one that I did not expect to hear. But I forget that you and I are kindred spirits in this way. Yes, could make
I'm
fire.
still pissed about them canceling Firefly. But I have the long memory problem. If this is not interesting to people in the comments, please tell us. But I have that long memory problem. So people will come up to me and they'll be like, "I'm pissed about what happened to Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primary." And I'm like, "I'm still mad about the 2004 primary. Let's talk about what happened to
Right.
Howard Dean because that was horseshit." And so like I can't stop. I'm just mad about stuff from like 20 years ago.
It does go back to the far. Also, as we were talking, because I have Twitter up right now, somebody straight up just retweeted out another thing from Sean Duffy, trying to say let's try not to wear slippers and pajamas when we come to the airport. And then someone posted a picture of what planes looked like in the '60s, and yeah, you know what? That seems nicer. The
Cool.
image,
But again, what are we nostalgic for? Are we nostalgic for dressing up on airplanes, or are we nostalgic for like I don't know, leg room
leg
and
room.
basic human dignity? Like for those out there who are like, I travel a lot, so I'm a points chaser, so I'm constantly building up my points and my status on stuff. When you get a first class seat, like when I get upgraded to first class, the only thing that I'm getting is basic human dignity and leg room. That's
Yeah,
it. I'm not getting anything fancy. They might give me like a little thing of like shitty champagne at the beginning, but like that's it. And I get a Coca-Cola. Like you're not getting a hot towel. You're not really even getting a meal on most domestic flights. And which,
right.
to be clear, I'm not complaining about like my experience in first class. It's just more like the fact that like the difference between coach and first class is just dignity. That's all
Hmm.
that it is. It's
Hmm.
like the rest are cattle, but man, I got lucky to get bumped up this time, so I get like a hot towel to wash my face and a Coke. It's
Right.
just not. That's what people are nostalgic for, where
It's
everybody got an equal level of service.
right. And I think like that, which travel in itself, which over the last 5 years is a thing that I like constantly come back to in conversations with my friends about just like what a microcosm of how the country is actually behaving right now. So like what happens when you get on planes, the rise of people like having filmed freakouts on planes or
Mhm.
getting violent on planes is also sort of like a little microcosm bubble because we're all in this tube together, whatever. What's happening out in the real world? And like the ideas of like how do we all respond to not having basic human needs met? Like
Yeah.
shows up on airplanes, and that's like leg room. But like in the real world, it's grocery prices and it's housing and it's
Yeah.
healthcare. It's all those things. So like as sort of a because my brand works this way, like as sort of like a story beat kind of a thing. As we all travel, a lot of us for Thanksgiving, like that's sort of I think on the minds of a lot of people too, in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I'll also say, like Cindy Brown, give a shout out for her comment here, but flying was once special, so people dressed up is the perfect way to articulate that. It was
Yeah,
a special thing that you can do, and you were treated in a particular way. And the more that they treat you like garbage, the more they treat you like human cattle. Why would you get dressed up so that you could take your finely pressed suit and be in, squeezed in between two other people in the back? Or do
right.
you remember, was it I think it was Aer Lingus or something like once pitched like standing flights where you would like be like strapped into a thing and holding so they could get more people back, and then they were gonna
Yeah,
like charge money for the bathroom and stuff because they didn't want you to use the bathroom. And I was like, I can't. This is I'm not a socialist, but when I hear stories like that, I start to go, man, I maybe Karl Marx was right. I don't know.
I think so. And then they were like, if you had like size 11 or bigger feet in European sizes, so I think that's like 9 or 10 in the U.S. Like,
Which is most men in America, I would
yeah,
imagine. Maybe not. I don't
like
know.
you'd get charged extra because like you would like hit the feet of the person in front of you or something. Like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
Right?
Yeah,
We should start to wrap this up, but I'm gonna
yeah.
just while we're on capitalism for a second, I would like to give you another like unfettered capitalism story that currently lives rent free in my brain. But I read a story last week that there's a venture capital fund that's buying up all of the youth hockey leagues in
Yeah,
America right now. Have you seen
yeah.
this story? Okay.
I saw this.
I'll share it for everybody else, but they're buying up all the youth hockey leagues. And then if you go to your kid's hockey game and you go to take a photo of your son or your daughter playing hockey, they on your iPhone, they will deduct your kid's team points and they will bench your kid because they want you to buy the official photos and videos that the venture capital company that owns the hockey league creates. And that is the type of shit that in every facet of America is ruining this country across the board. Not fucking everything has to be for maximum profit. Some things should be because they're for the betterment of the country or so that they're building some community. And it just, it's the absolute worst. And Stavros, the comedian, and I'll hand it back to you, Grant,
Yeah.
for the final word here, is I saw him when he was at the Chicago Theater like 6 months ago, and he said something that just really stuck with me, and I've thought about it every day. Is have you ever noticed that everything is more expensive and significantly shittier? Also, that a handful of billionaires can seem miserable every time they show their faces in public. And I was like, that is the most articulate version of what I am mad about every day because not only am I being absolutely bilked in every single facet of my life and are things shittier, like if you get a double stuffed Oreo right now, I don't know if you've had one in a while. I had one over Halloween. They are paper thin because of shrinkage. And I was so pissed when I had one. And it's like, so now it's more expensive and it's shittier. And then when I see Mark Zuckerberg on a podcast, he seems fucking miserable. They should at least have the audacity to seem happy to me. And I
Yeah.
just,
At least make it happy for somebody.
for
At,
somebody, right? At least if they were happy. Like Donald Trump seems like a miserable human being. So like, I wish these people were like happy.
I mean, I guess like enshittification comes for us all, right? That's what that is in the
Yeah,
end. Absolutely.
it's
But
just horrible. Grant, tell people where they can find you and engage with your content.
yeah, the Substack and the podcast are called Make It Make Sense with Grant Hermes. When you look it up, it's easier to search Mims, Mims, Mims News Pod. Usually that's all one word. It's a little red logo with a dumpster fire in the middle of it because that's where we're at right now. I'm going to be running a subscription drive for Make It Make Sense on Substack here starting tomorrow, going for the next 2 weeks over Black Friday. You'll get to lock in a founder fee for life. So as I have to raise prices over time because this is my full-time job as a journalist now, you'll never pay more than that ever. So
Wow.
that's where I'm starting with that. And then come next week, and I guess I'm launching this on your show. I'm launching a brand new newsletter along with Make It Make Sense called Things You Forgot from Civics Class, where every week I'm going to dive into the basics of civics and governance and how this country was actually designed to run and how these things work so that all the stuff that we like slept through in civics class when we were like 13, 14, 15 that now matters, we don't have to feel embarrassed by not knowing anymore. So
Yeah.
think like Bill Nye, but for civics. That's where I'm going with this thing. But that launches Monday, and you can find it on the same Substack as Make It Make Sense.
That's awesome. Well, okay, if you start doing Bill Nye though as civics, I expect you to be wearing funny outfits and doing bits all the time. And then I better be able to show it to my 6-year-old so we could teach him civics in a fun way.
Deal.
So that's you've set the bar very high for yourself. I've now got to
Yeah.
hold you to it. But everybody, please make sure you subscribe to Grant. He's brilliant. He's a great writer. He's a really sharp guy. We're going to have him back on the show. I think this is your third time on the show.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I'm conflating it with one time I did yours.
I think we
But
both.
but I enjoy every one of our conversations, and so make sure that you support his work. And if you're willing to support me, I'm Mike Nellis. My Substack is Endless Urgency. $8 a month helps support the work. Goes into the content studio, paying our staff. And I'm really, really grateful for everybody. I'll just leave. I'm going to be live again in like 30 minutes with Amanda Nelson, who I'm really excited to talk to.
Oh, great.
But if I don't get a chance to talk to other people before the holiday, go have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your family. Do not try to win the argument with your crazy uncle about Trump. You're not going to do it. Just get drunk and watch football or have fun with your family, whatever you do. But Grant, thank you so much for joining. Thank you to 2400 of you. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you to everybody.
All
Happy
right.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye all.